Welcome back to another video in the series of tutorials recreating the adventure that came in the DAAD manual called The Ticket. This was going to be the next video about creating the dog NPC character. Instead, we're going to make it into a bug fix tutorial today. If you remember back in the video where we had the bag, we were having problems with putting objects in and taking objects out. Put in and take out worked fine, but if we tried to put all in or take all out the bag, that was failing. So at first I thought it was just a problem with my interpreter in Test Adventure that was at fault. It's still a work in progress, it still has some bits which don't work as they should do. But it turned out to be more of a perfect storm of different issues. A viewer on YouTube very kindly provided some working code to compare with mine, so a shout out to Peps1975. At first glance I could see there was an issue with put all. This was an entry which didn't appear in the manual, and when I created it I copied it directly from the get all entry. So we just have a look at that one. Process 5, and we have put all in the bag. Now when I copied it from get all, I didn't change anything here. So I left this as put all and 1. Actually what that was trying to do was put everything from location 1, which was the bag, back into the bag, so it was failing. This should have been do all, and it should be everything the user was carrying. So it should be 254 carried, and that now means that everything located on the player is now trying to be put into the bag. That was one problem corrected. However, it still didn't work properly. But that was issue 1 solved, and the rest of the code looked correct. Until I remembered that in the PAWS tutorial, it said at the beginning to add everything to the beginning of the response table. What I didn't follow from that was they meant every entry should then be put in that order in the response table, which means everything should be in the reverse order to the order I was putting it in. It turns out that get all and put all need to be above put and get, because when the interpreter comes across these, it tries to run that and it succeeds or fails, and we never get as far as get all or put all. If we just drag these up to the correct location, that should fix that issue. So that's issue 2 solved. However, it still didn't work in my interpreter. So I tried downloading the DSF file and compiling it in DAAD Ready, and it still didn't work properly. I could put all of the objects in the bag, but I couldn't take any out. If I tried to take out just one item, I was told I couldn't carry any more. It took a lot of checking through the DSF file generated by my IDE with the default DAAD Ready template to find the issue. I initially assumed it was a problem with the flags. Go down to the bottom of process 6. When we initialize the adventure, we have this section here which sets certain flags. This one sets the strength of the player, and this one sets the amount of objects the player can carry. I was assuming they weren't being set, but they were, which was a head scratcher. So only later on I noticed that this line here was saying let 1 0, and in the default template it says num carried. I looked through the defines to find num carried, and it wasn't anything defined. Turns out this is a symbol which is used by the compiler in DAAD Ready, and this is generated on the fly. And this number equals every object which is in location 254 carried by the player. Now because this wasn't defined, my IDE was finding num carried, looking in the defines, saying this doesn't exist, and just therefore putting the number 0 in there. That was breaking everything. So let 1 needs to say num carried next to it, otherwise the compiler is not going to compile your adventure correctly. This has been fixed going forward. When you create new adventures, this will no longer be an issue. So that was issue 3 solved. Still didn't work in my interpreter. Turns out that do all was still just a stub in my code and had never been fully finished. Issue 4 was now discovered. During testing, I managed to temporarily cause a new issue. So in the processes, whilst playing around to find out what was going wrong, I changed for get all, I changed the preposition here to from to see whether that would make any difference. It didn't make any difference, but it did break the problem here with the get. So when do all runs, it uses the verb get and it tries to get all of the objects from that location. It does this by running a loop over process 5 until it can no longer get anything using this entry in the process table. But this entry said prep out, and I changed this one to say prep from, so they no longer matched, and that was breaking that cycle as well. So the preposition in get all has to match the one in get, or it may be better not to put a preposition at all, because that makes it slightly easier for the player who may type get all from bag, get all out of bag, etc. Sometimes it's easier to leave those prepositions out. I'm going to leave it in just because that was in the original manual code. But that wraps this section up of troubleshooting. To have a quick look in the objects now, because based on what we were doing with the bag object, never really made a lot of sense that you can choose an object to be a container. So if we just add a new object in, let's put it in carried for now, and we'll make this one into a suitcase. And we'll give it a noun, and we're going to make it a container. All that does when the adventure is compiled is it will use that location for this object for storing things, but it doesn't actually give you the ability to put things in or put everything in automatically. If we add that new object we've created, our suitcase, which we're carrying, I've now put in an auto generate container processes. If you click on that, it will now generate code for you which will do the do all, get all and look in automatically. So if you just go into the text editor, and we'll go down to process 5, which is where that will appear. So that's our auto examine code, and it has generated here put in the suitcase. I'm not using prepositions to avoid that complication, and it will generate the code to put things in, get things out, get all out, put all in the suitcase, and to look in the suitcase as well. This is a one-shot generation. It won't be taken away if you delete the object, so you need to remember that code is there should you later on decide you don't want the suitcase and you want to delete it, which we're going to do now because that was just an example. And I need to go in the object editor. I need to find that suitcase here, which we haven't defined a name for, and I'm just going to delete that object out of there. Okay, that's it for the end of this video. In the next one we will carry on with the adventure in the manual, and we'll look at the dog NPC character.